Hello all. Uh, Today's discussion is going to be about how to write functional user stories and technical user stories. So, when you join an organization as a business analyst or a scrum master or a product owner, something that comes up is they'll tell you to write user stories. And you have to know how to write user stories, which is pretty straightforward. It's not too complicated. And in today's session, we are going to see how to come up with technical and functional user stories and also spike stories. So we'll cover three segments. One is how to come up with a functional user story, how to come up with a technical user story, and how to come up with a spike story. So I'm just going to reverse engineer because I just don't want to come up with a story out of the blue. So let's assume this is what we are going to code. I'll just reverse engineer and I'll write a user story for this donut chart. So, what will be a good functional user story for this donut chart? The good functional user story would be I just want to give a brief description about this loan purpose revenue generation donut chart. So, this is a donut chart, it portrays information about uh, multiple revenues that are coming into the organization, which would include operating line of credit, refinance. We'll just call this blank as miscellaneous. So let's start. Okay, so let's write a functional user story for it. So a very good functional user story for this would be as a, and then there has to be the username. As an executive, I want to see the loan purpose. Uh, so what is this? Loan purpose revenue generation. Visualization chart on the customer profitability analysis page so that I can I can take better decisions. So this is an example of a functional user story. And you can also put as a executive, I want to see the operation line of credit. So it's operating line of credit. So as an executive, I want to see the operating line of credit revenue in the loan purpose revenue generation visualization chart on the customer profitability analysis page so that I can take better decisions. So this talks about this one. So likewise, we can do the same thing for refinance. We'll just throw it in there. As an executive, I want to see the refinance revenue in the loan purpose revenue generation visualization chart on the customer profitability analysis page so that I can take better decisions. So, as an executive, I want to see the refinance revenue in the loan purpose revenue generation visualization chart on the customer profitability analysis page so that I can take better decisions. So, this is talking about this segment in the donut chart. Now, something that you can notice is There is no design terminology in here. It only says visualization chart, but then it doesn't have any UI terminologies. Did you notice? That's how you have to write user stories. But then you might ask the question, no, in my organization, they write all the design content here too. Yes, I understand. Theoretically, this is how it should be done. So this is theoretically correct. Organizations might not follow 100% of theory. They might try their best to follow 100% of theory, but then they might follow only 50 to 60% of it at the end of the day. So I have seen many candidates come back and ask, no, in my organization we directly document the design. Yes, I understand that, but then this is how it's theoretically done. This is how it's theoretically correct this way. So I often tell my candidates, uh, you have to know theory to break theory. So in your organization, if they are slightly breaking theory and they are documenting it, it's best if you know theory so that you can actually break theory and document it like they are documenting in the organization that you're going to walk in, or in your current present organization, whatever your situation is. So yeah, so you have to know theory to break theory. Do have it in your mind. So next is technical user story. So let's just assume if the revenue goes below a certain dollar amount, say 1K, okay? I'm just coming up with a fictitious scenario so that I can give a good technical use. I can come up with a good technical user story. So let's say the revenue goes below 100,000 K. The application will generate an automated email to the executive. Okay, so this is what we are going to capture, right? So this is how you have to write the technical user story. Do see the skeletal structure. As a system, I want to send an I want to notify the executive via email if revenue goes below I don't know, $10,000. So if this might be a specific branch, so $10K, this is better, so that the executive is aware of the situation. So this is how you document a technical user story. So what is the skeletal structure? So what is the difference? So one difference between a functional user story and technical user story is there is no human intervention, right? Here there is an executive who will actually come to this page and who will look around this page and then find this donut chart. I think I lost that page. Okay. So in this case, there is an executive who's going to come in and who's going to actually look at this visualization chart. So there is a human intervention, right? But in this case, in the technical user story, when the revenue goes below $100,000, the system will send out a notification, an email notification via Outlook to the executive by looking at the uh, by looking at who's going to be the executive in the database. The employee table might have all those details, right? So here there is no human intervention. So when there is no human intervention and when the application does something, we call it a technical user story, and it starts with as a system as opposed to as a user. The user might be an executive or a loan officer or a desk staff. So this is one primary difference between a functional user story and technical user story. Next up, and what is the skeletal structure for a functional user story? So the skeletal structure would be as a user I want to show that. So this is the skeletal structure. So I'll just shade it in yellow. And what's going to be the skeletal structure for a technical user story? It's going to be as a system. So this difference you have to have in mind. So the next story that we are going to look at is the spike story. So at least from what I know, there is no skeletal structure for a spike story. So I'm just going to come up with another fictitious scenario where the data has to be migrated in order to come up with this pie chart. Okay, let's assume that we have to do some sort of a data migration in order to come up with this pie chart. So that's a spike. Uh, because it might need some research, because data migration, when it comes to data migration, we might have to inculcate some transformation logic, and this data might be coming from an external database, so we might need some permissions. We don't know the exact timings, and we don't know how long it's going to take, and we are not aware of the efforts. Hence it's a spike story. So data, so this is how I write the spike story. Spike story does not have a skeletal structure, but then one way of understanding a spike story will be A has to be done in order to execute B plus uh, the some amount of research needs to be done in order to work on the story. So this is a spike story. A good example would be data needs to be migrated from external data source. I'm going to come up with a random name, just a random database name. I just wrote some random characters, but think of it as an external database. And data must be transformed to be visualized. So this is a very good example of a spike story. Data needs to be migrated from external data source, and data must be transformed to be visualized. So this is a very good example of a spike story which doesn't follow any skeletal structure. Hope you are able to gather useful information through this very brief discussion. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. And if you have something to add, please comment below. Please do subscribe to my channel by clicking the subscribe button below. Thanks for your time. Thank you. Have a nice day.